Oh, I guess it's my turn to choose a card. Let's see.
What is the best don't hug me, I'm scared theory in the world?
That's a tricky one.
Well, not anymore. Bonjour, mes chers invités. Welcome to Film Tidbits, where we serve up scrumptious theories and choice morsels of film analysis for your tasting pleasure. I am honored to be serving as your head chef, and I am so delighted to see you back for the next part of our Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared feast. If you haven't yet watched part 1, where I introduce the trauma theory and build up the foundation of our evidence for it, you can find the link in the description below. Please go ahead and check it out if you can. I promise that, like a good appetizer, it will tickle your taste buds and get you ready for the meatier dishes to come. Otherwise, let's dig right in. Yet another detail that the media and growing up theories do not sufficiently address is that Roy is a total creep. I mean, just look at that face. No, but seriously, his character design is clearly meant to be creepy. The bloodshot eyes, the messed up nose, the singular strands of unkempt hair sprouting from his head. Of course, Roy's creepiness is not limited to his looks. His sinister omnipresence is felt throughout every episode of the series as he lurks in the shadows. And let's not forget that at one of his very first appearances in the series, in episode 2, Roy is literally watching porn. That is his entire introduction as a character. The creators didn't have to make Roy a creep in order to have him portray the roles of producer or adult. And yet, here we are, given a Roy who is without a doubt a complete and utter creep. In addition to the creepiness of Roy himself, let's talk about the creepy situation of our three friends. And no, I don't mean the dark twists and turns of Red Guy's dreamscape. I'm referring to the important detail that the series takes place in Roy's home. Each Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared episode is set in a different room, but given the recurring objects found across episodes, it's clear that the different rooms are all part of the same house. What's more, Roy and the three protagonists all live together in this house. As we just saw, Roy's personal computer is certainly located here. Episode 5 features various food products, all labeled with Roy's name, another indication that Roy is the homeowner. Framed photographs of Roy and the three friends are found hanging on the walls throughout the series. Episode 6 shows that Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck all share a bedroom. Considering how Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck are obviously different species, but live together with Roy and sleep together like siblings would, the situation is unusual to say the least. Here's where it gets really creepy. It's a wonder that no one else has discussed this. We need to talk about the fact that Red Guy is always naked. Unlike the other characters, Red Guy does not wear any clothing. And no, it is not just his unique character design as a Red Guy. As we witness in episode 6 when Red Guy wakes up from his dreams, not only does every other Red Guy of the species wear clothes, but he himself is also fully dressed, in highly appropriate workplace attire, no less. This is in direct contrast to his naked self that we are used to seeing in his dreams. And if that's not enough to convince you, take another listen to the dialogue in this scene.
But that's rude. No clothes.
When Red Guy grabs the spotlight stark naked, the pianist he upstages mutters the words, "Rude, no clothes." It is made explicit that Red Guy's nakedness is not normal. So if Red Guy is constantly dreaming up scenarios where he is naked in Roy's home, I think it's safe to assume that Roy's motive, and likewise Red Guy's traumatic experience, lie deep in the realm of creep. Now, there is one episode that notably does not take place in Roy's house. Episode 3 is noteworthy in a number of ways, not least of which is its distinctive setting in the woods. This is the only episode that does not take place inside the house, and it has nothing to do with its message. Maybe a song about nature would have to happen outdoors, but not necessarily a song about love. So, what makes episode 3 different from the rest? To explain this, we must start from the beginning of the episode, that is. As I mentioned before, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 3 kicks off with a long, slow close-up of the missing poster. If that doesn't seem suspiciously like foreshadowing, I don't know what does. So the episode starts with an ominous missing poster, then proceeds to take place in the middle of the woods, where one kid runs off alone and gets separated from his friends, and is then approached by a stranger who leads him off. My valued guests, I do believe we have here the beginnings of a backstory, and the final ingredient we needed to cook up a delicious theory. Bear with me now. This dish might sound crazy at first, but I promise you that by the end of this video, you will be completely hooked on this revolutionary new flavor. This is the story of Red Guy's traumatic past. On June 19th, 1955, our 3 young friends are out enjoying a picnic. Remember, parents didn't watch their children so closely back then. When Duck squashes a butterfly right in front of his eyes, Yellow Guy runs off alone into the woods. Duck and Red Guy leave him be for the moment, choosing to stay and start on their meal. At this critical juncture, Roy approaches the tearful and unaccompanied Yellow Guy. Represented by the butterfly in episode 3, Roy baits Yellow Guy with subversive ideas about love.
I know you don't know who I am, but maybe I could hold your hand, and together we could understand about love.
Huh? I feel tingly.
Yes, that's love, my friend.
As he leads Yellow Guy away, Roy manipulates the child to believe that he is lonely.
Because I'm hungry.
No, you're lonely. I can see it in your eyes.
I don't understand.
Everyone has a special one.
Even me? But I am lonely.
Yes, it's true.
In this way, Roy primes Yellow Guy to believe in the promises of a loving relationship and thus to accept his kidnapping. Eventually, Duck and Red Guy finish their picnic and begin to wonder where their friend wandered off to. When they try to search for Yellow Guy, they too are captured by Roy. This is represented in Red Guy's dreams as them finding Yellow Guy at the end of the episode, only to be intercepted yet again by the butterfly, aka Roy. The 3 children getting kidnapped together explains the unusual missing poster, which has a single photo of the group rather than individual headshots. Why does Roy kidnap these kids? Needless to say, he has creepy sexual motivations, as alluded to by the sexual undertones that run throughout the series. As mentioned earlier, Roy's creepiness and porn-watching habits, Red Guy's nakedness, and in episode 3 specifically, lines like, "I feel all tingly inside," and "harder."
I feel tingly.
Yes, that's love, my friend. You love us too.
I love you too, fairy boy.
Harder.
The three friends are held in captivity in Roy's house, thereby explaining the strange situation of the four living together and the three friends sharing a bedroom, which would be a highly unusual living arrangement for three adult friends. During their captivity, Roy manipulates the children through abusive psychological control with his authority as their only adult or parental figure, which is reflected in each episode's messed up lessons. In time, Red Guy actually manages to escape, as shown by his exit from Roy's house in episode 4 and separation from the other two in episodes 5 and 6. Red Guy tries to go back and help Duck escape, represented by the phone calls made to Duck and Duck's attempt to leave the house. But tragically, Duck fails to escape and is recaptured by Roy. As punishment, Roy kills Duck and forces Yellow Guy into eating his friend. Ultimately, as Yellow Guy too becomes unhappy and disobedient, Roy murders Yellow Guy as well via drowning. Whew, that is a lot to digest. Let's take a breath here and step back. Some of you might be thinking to yourselves, how in hell did we start from talking about dreams and a missing poster to a perverted triple kidnapping cannibalistic conspiracy theory? Aren't I biting off more than I can chew here? Well, my dear guests, they don't call me head chef for nothing. Thus far, I've aimed to debunk other mainstream theories and provide proof that my trauma theory is worth digging into. But now, let's get into the meat of what makes the trauma theory really juicy. Following what we've discovered about his harrowing childhood, when Red Guy wakes up in the real world in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared 6, it becomes clear that the previous episodes are trauma dreams of his kidnapping and captivity. While sleeping, Red Guy's subconscious mind uses his dreams as a space to filter his lived experiences through a children's television format in an attempt to process his trauma in a simplistic and friendly medium. This is a common trope in popular psychology. Our dreams are symbolic of repressed, latent emotions and can offer a glimpse into even the darkest recesses of our minds. That's why all the objects are made of felt and googly eyes, why the messed up messages he receives from Roy are presented through song. Perhaps these horrific memories are easier for Red Guy to process if they're first converted into the soft, playful world of a fictional kids' TV show. Think of it this way. No matter what kind of gory bloodshed is shown on TV, we viewers know deep down that it's all acting and special effects, and thus we have a much higher tolerance for stomaching fictional violence than if we were to see the same thing happen in real life. By turning his true experiences into a fun TV show, Red Guy attempts to create a safe space where he can review his memories from a distance, like a moviegoer watching a film. Remember that line, "Dreams are movies that play in your head"?
Dreams are movies that live in your head.
But the burden of processing a trauma of this magnitude is too much to bear. His posterior knowledge of how things turned out seeps through, and the kid-friendly dreams become perverted with violence and horror. You can see the evidence of our trauma theory in every single episode of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, which are united not only by their dark turns, but even more so by the themes of abuse which run throughout the whole series. After kidnapping Yellow Guy, Red Guy, and Duck, Roy needs a way to keep the 3 children in line, and lucky for him, Roy is a master in psychological manipulation. These techniques of control, commonly found in abusive relationships, resurface time and again in Red Guy's disturbed dreams. First of all are the corrupted lessons of each episode, where the concept presented may in itself be innocent, but the teaching is laced with conditions of control. And of course, swift punishment if those conditions are not followed. An obvious example of this is when the sketchbook in episode 1 encourages our 3 friends to get creative, but is quick to reject creative thoughts that he doesn't agree with.
Green is not a creative color.
This pattern of arbitrary conditions and punishment is a prevailing characteristic of controlling behavior, as it allows the abuser to put forth an illusion of providing freedom while putting the blame squarely onto the abused if they overstep their boundaries.
Don't be stupid, friends!
Like saying, look, you have the freedom to get as creative as you want. But when you do something they disagree with, saying, don't be stupid, you're wrong to paint a picture of a clown, that doesn't count as being creative, and then pouring black paint all over their work. When people feel like they're stepping on eggshells, like they'll trigger an invisible mine with a single wrong move, in that kind of situation, people are strongly discouraged from thinking for themselves or pursuing their own interests.
Fun? There's a time and a place for mucking around.
They're all but prohibited from doing so. And the nightmares that are plaguing Red Guy's mind plainly indicate that he has experienced this kind of abuse before. On the opposite side of the spectrum, abusers will often attempt to encourage a preferred behavior by associating them with rewards relating to manipulative notions of love. We see this, as I've mentioned before, in episode 3, when the butterfly instructs Yellow Guy on an extraordinarily warped understanding of love, first convincing Yellow Guy that he is lonely and confused.
Even me? But I am lonely.
Yes, it's true, but do not worry. You're confused.
And then pushing him to reserve his love and worship a cultish icon in order to never be alone.
And join the king!
And you will never be alone.
This peculiar and honestly just baffling scene with the giant Malcolm head who for some unknown reason eats gravel is seldom covered by other theorists. But it fits exquisitely into our trauma theory as a metaphor for the coercive and isolating environment led by a godlike authority figure demanding love and worship that the 3 protagonists experienced in their captivity under Roy. This also explains why episode 3 has those weird sexually charged lines. Like a cult leader, Roy promises a rewarding and loving relationship in exchange for obedience, and he then takes advantage of that love-inspired obedience to commit his creepy crimes. Another classic indicator of controlling behavior is the abuser trying to control the reality of the abused. In the case of an adult or parental figure towards children, it can mean controlling their learning and access to information. Episode 4 closely explores this theme. It begins with the 3 friends trying to play what looks like an educational board game, Question Fun. However, when Red Guy attempts to seek an answer to his question card, looking to the globe behind him to learn more about the world, he is interrupted by the computer before they can learn anything. The computer goes on to continually disrupt their search for helpful information, successfully distracting Yellow Guy and Duck with the frenetic world of pie charts, digital style, and digital dancing. Hey, this is fun. Critically, Red Guy does not allow himself to become distracted here, a point we'll return to later. Anywho, this is symbolic of their heavily censored access to information under Roy's vigilant watch. Whenever they tried to ask questions or learn about the outside world, Roy would deflect and distract them with useless knowledge or nifty gadgets until they forgot about and abandoned their original train of thought. In this way, Roy was able to divert their attention away from the reality of their captivity, and thus keep them under tighter control. One last theme of power and control in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared that may not be so obvious at first is the unremitting call to have Red Guy, Yellow Guy, and Duck change their identities and forget their pasts. We see this in episode 2 when the clock points to a photo of the three in the woods, pre-kidnapping, and asserts that the past is far behind us.
The past is far behind us.
This line seems innocent enough when taken on its own, but notice how later on in the episode, the same photo hangs on the wall behind them when Red Guy and Duck are strapped into what can only be called a brainwashing machine, while the clock focuses all their attention on the future.
Everything's cool. It's the future. Time is now. The future and you. And look at all the wonderful things you can do with gadgets and gizmos and email addresses.
And in the final shot, which returns to a scene almost identical to the start of the episode, one change is especially ominous. Where the photo of the three friends' past once hung, we now find a blank white landscape with only the word nothing. And this isn't the only reference to brainwashing, erasing the past, and accepting a new future. In episode 3, the butterfly and his cronies sing to Yellow Guy.
This is your chance to start anew, and all we're asking you to do
Is change your name.
clean your brain. Forget about anything you ever knew.
Change your name. Clean your brain. Forget about anything you ever knew. They are literally about to scrub his brain with a toothbrush here. And this mention here of changing Yellow Guy's name sinisterly parallels our earlier discussion about the inexplicable D on Yellow Guy's overalls, another hint at attempts to change the three captives' identities. In episode 4, the computer says,
You're not you. You're your digital you. Virtually real, but controlled by real you.
to which Duck replies,
But if he's not quite real, then I'm not real too. And you're not real you is inside your real you.
Now, these lines are confusing to say the least, and that is absolutely done on purpose. This confusion, this blurring between the real you, the digital you, and the not real you, represents yet another attack on the three friends' senses of personal identity. And you can see how this impacts Duck and Yellow Guy with the seriously unhinged digital visualizations of themselves shown later in the episode. All of this is symbolic of Roy seeking to consolidate his control over his captives by having them forget their past lives and think only of their present identities as his children. And we are clearly shown just how effective this technique is with Yellow Guy, who fully accepts that Roy is his real father. But whether it really works on Duck and Red Guy, well, we see later on, don't we? I want to wrap up this discussion with a return to the very, very beginning of Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. A return that not many other analysts make. The title. Whether you learn about Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared through your YouTube recommendeds, word of mouth, or just browsing the internet, your very first exposure to the series is the title. It's the link your eyes run over when you click to watch the video. It's the first words you hear when your friend asks, "Hey, have you ever seen Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?" But why exactly is it called Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared? It doesn't make sense if the central focus of the series is around media profiteering or one guy's fear of growing up. This title immediately sets up a dialogue, an interaction between two people where one is the aggressor and the other is frightened. The choice of the word hug is an instant trigger for notions of intimacy. Hugs only occur between people intimate with each other. So, what does it mean for you? What do you think of? How do you feel when you see the words, "Don't hug me, I'm scared"? Intimacy, fear, aggression, withdrawal, coercion, trauma, scars. The entire story is contained within these words. This title is a masterpiece, just pregnant with meaning and emotion, and I really must hand it to the creators for conceiving it. The revelations in this section are chilling, I know. But that's precisely what you want from a buffet froid, no? Ha ha ha. So, is this the end of the trauma theory? The dark conclusion to the dark analysis of a dark series? Of course not! Don't cool down too much yet, as we still have a lot left to cover before dinner is over. But still, for the sake of our digestive systems, let's take another short interlude here before I serve the next dish. I look forward to welcoming you back to the table next week. In the meantime, if you found this video to your liking, we do accept tips in the form of like and subscribes, so be sure to smash those buttons before you go. We also have a Patreon for you more dedicated connoisseurs out there, which you can find below as well. Until then, au revoir et bonne nuit.